Hello again. So now we're at the end of chapter 7, and we've actually learned every type of factoring method that there is to learn, and now we're going to kind of put it all together. So this is basically a combination of everything we learned in 7.5 part 1 and 2, 7.6 part 1 and 2, and 7.7. And all of these questions involve factoring. So as you look at this first page, there are 4 situations where we will be factoring. And we're going to review them all, and hopefully by the end of the notes, you'll feel comfortable with the assignment that goes along with this packet. One thing you'll notice on the packet that's in front of you is there was some smearing in the copying, but you should be able to see what the questions are saying. Alright, so going back to the first thing we learned about factoring was we're looking for the greatest common factor. The greatest common factor. What is the biggest number? And what is the biggest amount of variables that go into both terms? So the first thing we look at anytime we see a polynomial, whether it's 2 terms or 3 terms or maybe even 4 terms, is there something that can be factored out of each individual term? So we first focus our eyes on the coefficient. I have a 3 and I have a 6. And I ask myself, what is the biggest number that goes into 3 and 6 evenly? Well, the biggest number that goes into 3 and 6 is 3. And then I look at the variables. Well, here we have an x squared. Here we have an x. And so they both share at least an x. So 3x is what I pull out of both terms. What remains on the inside of the parentheses is whatever's left over after I take a 3x out of here and after I factor a 3x out of here. And so the only thing that still remains from 3x squared if I take out a 3x is an x. And the only thing that remains from 6x if I take out a 3x is a 2. And I know this because if I go the other direction now, if I actually multiply it out, well, 3x times x is 3x squared. And then 3x times 2 is your 6. And of course that gets us right back to where we started. That's how I know that I factored it correctly. So a really quick example, if I look at 6x squared plus 3x, again, look at the first, or the numbers in front. I have a 6 and a 3. Well, the biggest number that goes into 6 and 3 is 3. And then the first term has an x squared, the second term has an x, so they both have at least an x. And now, what times 3x would give you 6x squared? Or another way to look at it is, what is 6x squared divided by 3x? Well, 6 divided by 3 is 2. And then if I already took an x out of the x squared, I still have an x remaining. And then if I have a 3x here, and I already factored out the entire 3x, I still have to have a factor of 1. So that way when I multiply these, if I want to check my work, 3 times 2x gives you 6x squared. Like that. If we do distribute property, and then the 3x times the 1, that gives you 3x. So again, I'm right back to where I started, so I know that this is the correct factoring. So that all has to do with finding the greatest common factor, and that's what we always look for first. Now, sometimes there is not a greatest common factor. And so one of the other things we learned was, this one's kind of a shortcut, is a difference of 2 squares or a perfect square trinomial. So the difference of perfect squares, when you see the word difference, you should be thinking subtraction. So are the 2 things that are being subtracted perfect squares? Or the other way, or the other option I should say, is what's called a perfect square trinomial. Trinomial, of course, is 3 terms. So are there 3 terms, and the first term and the last term are perfect squares. So trinomial, 3 terms. And we're looking to see if my first term and third term are perfect squares. So let's go back here first. We have the difference. And if this is a perfect square, and this is a perfect square, I can divide it up like this. So x squared, the only way to make x squared is an x and an x. X times x. So the same thing times itself gives you x squared. And then the only way to make a 9, if you take the square root of 9, is 3 and 3. But here's the nice thing about the difference of perfect squares. If this is a subtraction sign, then one of these two binomials has to be addition, and the other one has to be subtraction. Because remember what happens, we actually saw this in part 1 of the chapter. If you FOIL two terms, they look the same, but one's addition and one's subtraction. If you did the entire FOILing process, if you did all of that, remember that the two middle terms actually cancel each other out. And there's your x squared, and there's your minus 9. So again, it gets us right back to where we started, so we know we're doing it right. Now this one over here, again, if I want to make two binomials, which is what we're doing almost every time, x squared, the square root of x squared is x and x. The square root of 4 is 2 and 2. Everything's addition here and here, so everything is addition here and here. And then we can either write the same thing twice, or because there's two of them, I can write it once and say that it's squared, because that just means the same thing times itself. So as we look at x squared minus 16, I draw my two parentheses. Square root of x squared, I have an x and an x. Minus 16, so I have to do a plus 4 and a minus 4. Because the only way you can get a negative product is if you multiply a positive times a negative. And then this one over here, my two binomials, the x squared again becomes x and x. The 9, square root of 9 is 3 and 3. Everything's addition here, so everything is addition there. Okay, another form of factoring that we looked at was, well, what if it's a trinomial and the x value is equal to 1? So what we're looking for is two numbers that multiply to make the c value, but add to make the b value. What two numbers multiply to make negative 8, but add to make negative 2? And that would be a plus 4 and a minus 2. So in these ones, we still set up our two parentheses, just like this. The x squared just becomes x and x. What two numbers multiply to make 15, but add to make negative 8? So at least one of them has to be negative to create negative x's in the middle. But if this is a positive 15, well, then I have to multiply a negative by another negative to produce a positive result. So I actually know that both numbers have to be negative. And then my factors of 15 that also add to make negative 8, well, that's a minus 5 and a minus 3. And you could FOIL this just to make sure that you're on the right track. And the last version that we did was, well, what if the a value is greater than 1? And this is the AC method. This is the more complicated method that we do. And so what we have to do here, you see the final answer of these is still a binomial times a binomial. But let's walk through the steps of how to do this. So the first thing you're going to do, because this number is greater than 1, you can't do this method right here. Okay, you have to do a different method, and that's called the AC method. So I multiply by a value times my c value, and this gives you a product of negative 10. So now the method I use, or the next step of the method is, what two numbers exist that multiply to make negative 10, but add to make negative 9? Well, we know that 2 times 5 is 10, but there's not a combination of those that we can add together to make negative 9. So that leaves me 1 and 10. 1 and 10. Well, my first term here, 2x squared, stays right there. My minus 5 stays right there. All I'm doing now is I'm breaking down the middle term into two smaller terms, or two other terms, that when they multiply they make negative 10, but when they add they make negative 9. Well, that's going to be minus 10x and plus 1x. So negative 9x breaks down to negative 10 and positive 1. If you multiply negative 10 and 1, you get negative 10. If you add negative 10 and 1, there's your negative 9. Now, this brings up another thing that we learned about factoring. When there are 4 terms, what do? We group the first two, and we group the last two. And now the same thing that I did all the way at the beginning with these two terms, I'm doing it with this group first, and then I'm doing it with this group. So what's the biggest number that goes into 2 and 10 evenly? That would be 2. Do they share any x's? Yes. X squared and x, so they both have at least an x. Now what's left? I have x minus 5. Now with this group, the only thing that can be factored out is a 1. It's the only thing that's common to both x and minus 5. So I take out that 1. Remember, anything times 1 is itself. And I'm at x minus 5. Okay. Now this gets me to my eventual two answers. I take my outside terms, the 2x plus the 1. That's one of my binomial answers. My other binomial answers is what they have in common, the common parenthesis. And that is my final answer. It's still a binomial times a binomial, just like this one was, just like these ones were. The only difference is how I get there using the AC method. Now we're going to look at some examples on the next page, and what you'll find is sometimes we have to use multiple of these rules as we get to our final answer. So let's take a look at the next page. So look for your greatest common factor first. They both have at least a 4, and they both have at least an x. That leaves me with x squared minus 2. That's as far as I can go. Alright, we're going to actually skip number 2. We're going to jump down to number 3. So here I see that difference, the difference of perfect squares. So I know I'm going to break it down into x and x. Because this was a difference of perfect squares, I have an addition sign and a negative sign. And then what's the square root of 64? That's 8 and 8. And there's your final answer. On number 4, at first glance you might think, oh, you have to do the AC method. Well, not necessarily, because look at your first term and look at your last term. Are they perfect squares? Well, what would multiply to make 4x squared? Well, it's actually 2x and 2x. So because they're the same thing, that would be considered a perfect square. 4x squared breaks down to 2x and 2x. And 9 breaks down to 3 and 3. Now, if this is a positive sign right here, that means both of these signs have to be the same. Well, if I have a negative in the middle, that means they both have to be subtraction. And that's your answer. That would be in a perfect square trinomial. All right, now what I have on 5 and 6 is I see that my a term is 1. They're not both perfect squares. So now I do the method of, okay, what two numbers multiply to make the c value, but add to make b? So I go x and x. What two numbers multiply to make 24, but add to make 11? And that's going to be plus 8 and plus 3. And there's that answer. Similar type of thing here. What two numbers multiply to make negative 18, but add to make negative 3? It's going to be a minus 6 and a plus 3. So now we're going to finish with two questions that are going to require the AC method. And so we'll go through these ones right now. So I go, because a is greater than 1, I go 2 times 5, that's 10. The 2x squared stays here. The plus 5 stays there. And then the 11x, what two numbers multiply to make 10 but add to make 11? Well, that's plus 10x and plus x. And then group the first two, group the last two. What's the greatest common factor of 2x squared and 10x? That's a 2x, and that gives me x plus 5. The only thing that can be factored out of x plus 5 is a 1. And again, notice your common ones, they have to be the same, and your outside ones. So the outside ones become one answer, and your common inside ones become your other answer. All right, last one. Now we got 6 times 2. 6 times 2 is 12. What two numbers multiply to make 12 but add to make negative 7? It's actually negative 4 and negative 3. The 6x squared and the 2 on the outside, those stay right there. We group, and then we're at 2x, and I get 3x minus 2. Because the first term's negative, I'm going to factor out a negative 1, and I'm going to get 3x minus 2. And then I get my outside terms, 2x minus 1, and my inside terms, 3x minus 2. There you go.